Oh, you have it downloaded now? Hey, give it a try at least, you know? Yeah, I heard about the new Hollow Knight coming out, the DLC for it, you know? All right, let's see. I know I got well, at least I got a good amount of Destiny fans here in my chat and everything. So I'm kind of curious to see what their opinion is on this, you know, on this
I'm
video.
not gonna lie, this one hurts. Today we are performing an autopsy on Bungie, one of the most prolific game studios in the entire games industry, one that was largely responsible for popularizing online gaming for casual audiences. Hell, these guys were the ones that brought gaming into the mainstream, and as they rose to the highest of heights, they become nothing more than a cautionary tale of greed and mismanagement. This is the same studio that gave us Halo, that built Destiny, that at one point represented the future of the games industry. Yet here we are now, watching them collapse under the weight of their own arrogance, incompetence, endless layoffs, and a community that
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I definitely wasted a lot of time or so playing Destiny 1. I played literally the shit out of Destiny 1 so much. It was so fun. I always logged in every single day. It was great. It was like definitely I think when did let me see. When did Destiny 1 came out actually? Speaking of that actually. Damn, 2014. Okay, let me see. What games came out during that time, actually? So we had, what is it? Far Cry 4, Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. I did not like Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. It was, I played Destiny on that point. Watch Dogs, The Evil Within, Wolfenstein, Dark Souls 2, Mario Kart 8, Dragon Age Inquisition, South Park: The Stick of Truth, Assassin's Creed Unity, Titanfall. Yeah, I remember playing Titanfall 2 as well on the PC. It wasn't really great, but you know, but what else did we had? Assassin's Creed Rogue, Borderlands the pre-sequel, Plants vs. Zombies. We got Lego Batman, Transformers: Rise of the Darkness. Ah, yes. Fucking Kingdom Hearts 2.5, bro. 2.5 remix. I also played that. Yeah, it was definitely Kingdom Hearts and Destiny what I was playing the most during that time, you know? D1 was my go-to. I believe I had more than... Yeah, I spent so many hours in Destiny 1. You guys have no idea.
Longer wants to defend them. They went from making some of the most recognized and beloved games in the industry to now being under threat of having their studio taken away and them folded into PlayStation. I don't think that there is a better example of a studio that has wasted its own potential, its own talent, its own games, while also simultaneously betraying their audience at every given turn. Cutting content, paywalling things, obfuscation of currencies, stealing fan art. How do you fall that far? How do you fall that hard? How do you go from defining the industry to being everything that we hate about it?
Because of cars. That's the reason why. The CEO of Destiny, or the CEO of Bungie wanted more cars, you know? He wanted more cars for his collection at the end of the day. Oops. That's the reason why, you know? He just wanted to buy more cars.
Well, that's what we're going to find out. Big thanks to Starford Systems for supporting the channel and sponsoring today's video. They build some of the most powerful custom PCs out there, hand-assembled, stress-tested, and built to last. Whether you want a pre-built rig ready to go or a full custom build, check out Starford Systems and use my link in the description below. Bungie is at its lowest point in history. Destiny 2 has collapsed to its weakest player count in years. Since the release of The Edge of Fate just a couple of months ago, the game has bled out most of its audience. It's now barely reaching 25,000 players on Steam, which is a loss of...
25,000. Jesus. How is it now? Is this as the recording of this video, or let me see. We always got to do our research, chat. Always got to do our research. Let's see. We got to fact check every single time, always. Actually, 15,000 right now, 30,000 in the past 24 hours. Right now it's at 15,000, but you know, it's because it's probably nighttime and everything. So 30,000 people are playing it. So that shows the difference, you know. So we always got to make sure to check it, you know. The only reason why you always gotta check it at least. And let's check it out within 1 year or so. That's how it is within 1 year specifically. At the pinnacle of Monday. Yeah, Monday, you know, they probably beat all the content and everything, the story and everything, so the DLC, and it's all the way down here, so. Yeah, that's pretty much about it, so. You always gotta check at the end of the day, you know?
More than 90% of the players that they had at the game's peak with Lightfall. Their next project, the extraction shooter Marathon, was revealed this last
YouTube Frogs Co makes us do her research. What the fuck are you talking about? I just literally just fucking did the research right now. Shut the fuck up, man. Oh yeah, also people at my YouTube comment section really loves you, Dubstep, so.
spring to little more than criticism and controversy, especially after it came out that they had
Elder was overhyped again. Is it?
Creator. Ultimately,
I haven't played that game yet.
Fiasco forced PlayStation to suspend the release of the game indefinitely. So now with Marathon in limbo, Destiny 2 spiraling.
Wait, Marathon is in limbo right now? Oh, I didn't know that actually. Oh. Also, speaking of which, I completely forgot to add my stupid goddamn freaking my subtitles. I forgot to add my subtitles again. I always keep forgetting to add my subtitles. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Okay, leave me alone. I'm old. It's already that my age is already catching up to me now.
And CEO Pete Parsons stepping down, Sony has already begun stripping away Bungie's independence and preparing to fold them deeper into PlayStation.
That's crazy.
Rewind the clock 10 or 20 years ago, and this is one of the greatest studios in the industry. They were
well, the problem is like, you know, they had a lot of freedom, but the problem is that freedom was completely, you know, they completely shat on themselves, you know? They had all the freedom and they could have done so much amazing things, but, you know, apparently they did not, so...
untouchable, and nobody could have ever predicted that this is where Bungie would end up, but here we are, which means that we have to answer the question how, and to be able to understand that, we need to go back to where it all started. Like so many legendary studios, Bungie's story begins really normally, to be honest with you. In the early 90s, Jason Jones and Alex Seropian had met in college in Chicago, and they bonded over a love of games, and they wanted to build games of their own. They cut their teeth on making titles for the Mac, beginning with a game called Nope, a Pong clone that was made before they even created the studio, and then they followed that up with Operation Desert Storm, a dungeon crawler called Minotaur: The Labyrinths of Crete, and then they made their first real FPS game, Pathways to Darkness. But it wasn't until the release of Marathon that Bungie truly had made a name for itself. Marathon was unlike anything that Bungie had built before. Its strange, compelling brand of sci-fi pulled players in, and its vertical level design pushed the experience forward. But what really mattered here was that it came out for Mac, because at the time, shooters and big budget games really just lived on PC or consoles, leaving Mac players starved for options. Bungie filled that void, but in doing so, they ended up building a loyal following that saw their games as proof that Mac gaming could stand alongside the rest. The success of Marathon followed by Marathon.
So this game came out on Mac. I see.
On 2 and Marathon Infinity cemented Bungie as a cornerstone
I didn't know
of
that
Mac
actually.
gaming and gave them their first taste of real mainstream recognition. Following the success of Marathon, Bungie tried their hand at publishing a few smaller titles while quietly developing their next big project, and in 1997 they released Myth: The Fallen Lords in RTS, and it became their fastest selling game to date. I think the reason why Bungie was so successful at this point comes down to what they themselves described in an IGN documentary. They were young, stupid, idealistic, and above all, ambitious. They weren't just...
As in other words, passionate.
Running a corporation. They were a group of friends that were making games that they wanted to play. If you go back and you watch some of the footage of their earlier days, you can see it plain as day. None of these guys were shooting any of these videos with the intention of it being in a documentary. No, they were just running around with camcorders because that's what everybody else did at the time. The office was full of pranks, jokes, and chaos, but underneath it all was a philosophy that drove everything that they had made. They were their own customers.
I think it all starts with the idea that we were our own customer, and that anybody else who was going to play our games, you know, we were in their shoes.
And the spirit of that was tested almost immediately, because when Bungie released Myth 2, it shipped with a critical issue where the installer was wiping players' hard drives with no patches or day one updates to be able to save them. Bungie then had to recall nearly 500,000 copies and replace them at their own expense. It cost the company millions of dollars and nearly sank the studio, but it showed exactly what kind of company they were. Oh my, how times have changed. That was Bungie when they first started. They were their own customer. They were making games for themselves. And I think when you look at their early success, that makes a lot of sense. I think that you have...
Yeah, but the problem is, the sad thing about it now in today's day and age, a lot of developers don't even play their own games. The only ones who play their own games is literally what was the name one of the creators or so from Final Fantasy, from when they made Final Fantasy, what is it, 16 or so? I think from Final Fantasy 16. Like, he beat the boss by himself and everything like that. Like, he showed his skills of gaming, you know. Like, there are some, right? But it's not the unfortunately, like, a lot of the Western people don't really play their own games, you know, which is kind of saddening in my personal opinion. You know, if I created something, right, if I created a video game or something, you know, of course I'm gonna play it. Like, I'm gonna play the shit out of it, of course, you know.
Have to be selfish in the games industry. I mean, you have a ragtag group of nerds and geeks that like sci-fi and fantasy games, and that's what they were trying to make for themselves. They weren't thinking about what anybody else wanted them to make. They just wanted to make the games that they themselves wanted to play.
Pretty much,
we were
yeah.
our own customer. We were in their shoes. That line seems to come up almost every single time I ever talk about either successful developers or ones that are failing, because at the end of the day, I think that that's where success in this industry starts and stops. If you do not understand the perspective of your customers, if you cannot feel what they feel, then how are you supposed to provide anything of value to them? After the financial disaster of Myth 2, Bungie doubled down on their next project, Halo, and I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just the financial pressure of these guys almost going under. Maybe they just had the right people at the right time, but their talent went through the roof. Marcus Leto leveled up in art direction. Joseph Staten stepped in as a writer and cinematic lead. Chris Butcher drove the engineering. Chris Barrett refined the visuals. In just a few years, this scrappy Mac studio that was making quirky RTS games and dungeon crawlers was suddenly building something unrecognizable. It jumped so big that, honestly, I just don't understand it. Halo debuted at Macworld with none other than Steve Jobs introducing it, and for the reveal trailer, Bungie had brought back Marty O'Donnell, who had scored Myth 2, and they only gave this guy
I'm not
a vague
making
description
hentai
of a
games,
mythical,
okay?
ancient
Stop
alien
it.
world, and what he would then deliver for that trailer is now the most iconic theme in all of gaming, the Halo theme.
Yeah, they worked on. Oh, here it is. Damn, dude, such a classic.
But even as they pushed forward creatively, Bungie was still deep in financial trouble. They were not good at managing money, they were good at making games, and the impact of the millions lost on Myth 2's launch was finally starting to take its toll. So, following the reveal of the game, they began quietly searching for somebody to acquire them. They knew that Microsoft was preparing to launch a new console, so they reached out to Ed Freeze, head of Xbox. Freeze, completely desperate for talent and flagship titles, jumped at the chance to be able to acquire them. The deal went through, and Microsoft made Halo the centerpiece of its new console. Now, at the time, first-person shooters lived on PC. Games like Doom and Quake thrived on mouse and keyboard precision, and most people doubted whether or not first-person shooters could even work on console. Halo Combat Evolved ended up launching on the Xbox, and it proved everybody wrong. Its tight controls redefined what shooters could be on the platform, setting the standard for how FPS games would feel on consoles even today. When Halo released, I don't know, man, this game was an enigma. Its campaign and PvP were perfect, and
I've never played the first Halo, of course, because I never owned an Xbox, so...
had never played anything like it before, and its LAN-enabled multiplayer...
I think during the original Xbox, I owned a PS2, but I was playing Kingdom Hearts during that time. Kingdom Hearts, the Monster Hunter, the original one. I think those were the only games I got. Later on, I did get Battlefront, of course. The Star Wars Battlefront 2? Question mark? Should be Battlefront 2. I think that's pretty much it, you know?
Created this instant community around it. We'd hook up multiple Xbox consoles for 16-player matches. It just became the game
I am not making
everybody wanted to get
game,
together
okay.
to play. And it wasn't just about playing the game, it was about the shared memories that that game brought with it. But this is also the moment where things took an unexpected turn, because after the release of Halo and during the development of Halo 2, Bungie's priorities
I don't
began
drop games if they have some weird kind of mechanic-ish on one certain thing. I'd rather play the whole entire game itself and get my own formula opinion about it.
Shift, and I'd argue that this is the moment
drop
where
it because of
everything
one
changed
thing.
for them. Because remember, Bungie was a Mac-first developer with a loyal audience that carried them through their early years. They would not be where they were without them. The original agreement they had for Halo was for that game to be multi-platform, and Microsoft had already commissioned Gearbox to port the game to PC and Mac. But then, Microsoft and Xbox's marketing team, along with Bungie's own manager under Microsoft, Pete Parsons, canceled the ports, forcing the game to be exclusive. Now, I'm not saying that this betrayal of the PC and Mac fans was the sole reason for Bungie to go down the wrong path, but this is the moment where control started to slip, when making games stopped being about the players who got them there and started being about something else entirely, something that only got worse with the development of Halo 2. Bungie wanted to push Halo 2 further than anything that they had done before, but the project slipped into chaos. Deadlines started slipping, Microsoft's patience started to run dry, and executives were reportedly pressuring the developers to sleep in their own offices just to keep the machine moving. The same group of nerds that were once making games for themselves were now getting crushed under corporate schedules. Bungie asked for another year, but Microsoft said no. For Bungie, this wasn't just a scheduling issue, it was survival. Rushing Halo 2 risked undoing everything that they had already built, and the standoff between the two got so heated that Ed Freeze, one of Xbox's top leaders, quit the company in frustration. Bungie eventually ended up getting their delay, but they lost their strongest ally, and with him, the last traces of the carefree studio that they used to be. And I think what's crazy is that despite all of this,
I didn't even knew about that, to be honest. Yeah, this was probably during the era of crunch, crunch time and everything.
Talent was still undeniable. Halo 2 was more than just a sequel, it was a cultural event. It sold 2.4 million copies in the first 24 hours. It raked in $125 million, becoming the fastest selling piece of media at the time. It was the moment that gaming fully entered into the mainstream, and beyond sales, Halo 2 revolutionized online multiplayer. Through Xbox Live, players could actually form clans and climb leaderboards and compete in a global community. It wasn't just a continuation of Halo's story, it defined what online gaming could be for consoles, and it cemented Bungie as one of the most important studios in gaming history. But that success came at a cost, because
I don't work at Xbox, okay?
Big time, locking in with Microsoft, abandoning their old Mac audience, even if it wasn't their choice, it reshaped the studio. The Bungie that was once building games for themselves is now tied to something much bigger, and the weight of that partnership was starting to show. The development of Halo 2 was the moment where Bungie finally realized what they had signed up for. Microsoft now has one of the most important games in the industry, and there was no world in which they were going to let Bungie work on anything else. With every release, expectations grew even heavier, and as soon as Halo 2 had shipped, Bungie was pushed straight into Halo 3. Now, on the surface, the development of Halo...
I can kind of see why a lot of people started to leave out of the company, because doing the same shit every single year, basically every single day, every single 5 years of dev life cycle is the same shit, same Halo game. We don't even get the chance to make something else, so.
Halo 3 was going smoothly, but inside the studio, resentment was building. Leadership had already begun whispering about escape and starting talks with Microsoft about going...
Because I'll be honest with you, making the same shit over and over and over again, the creativity kind of dies off pretty fast or so,
Dependent, knowing that they had been chained to Halo forever under Microsoft's oversight. And yet, under that pressure, they did it again. In 2007, Halo 3 launched to $170 million in sales in the first 24 hours. Halo 3 was an enormous leap over Halo 2. Powered by the Xbox 360's hardware, visually, it was unrecognizable compared to earlier games. Easily the best-looking shooter of the time. Bungie over-delivered on nearly every single front. Forge mode, a revolutionary tool that let us make our own maps and create our own content. Theater mode, where we could record, edit, and share gameplay clips. Dedicated servers that gave multiplayer stability and consistency that we just never even saw on console. And a campaign that stretched even longer than whatever they had made before, delivering some of the most cinematic, satisfying experiences imaginable. But at the height of their success, Bungie was still looking at the exit. Following Halo 3's release, they announced that they were going to be separating from Microsoft,
just because I recently got the Xbox Game Pass doesn't mean I'm an Xbox
and return
person.
to their roots as an independent studio. Under the deal, Microsoft would retain rights to Halo, while Bungie would continue developing the franchise for a few more years before they fully parted ways. In that stretch, Bungie oversaw Halo Wars, they followed it up with Halo ODST, and finally, in 2010, Halo Reach marked both the studio's farewell to Halo and the end of their official partnership with Microsoft. It was the close of an era. Looking back on it now, it's crazy that despite all the chaos and the pressure that Bungie was under, they never seemed to break. They had already secured their independence from Microsoft. They could have just coasted, quietly quit, or just phoned it in, but instead, every single release, every game they had seemed to just raise the bar even higher. And while Halo 3 might be the most popular entry in the series, Reach was just something else entirely. It showed just how much Bungie had matured and how their skills had developed over the years, and to this day, I do not think that there's been a better FPS story that I have played. Going back to the beginning, delivering Cortana to the Pillar of Autumn, watching the sacrifices of Noble Team unfold, it was devastating, it was emotional, it was unforgettable. Nobody expected Bungie to tell a story like that, and it left an impact that I think still defines them for many fans even today. For a lot of us, Reach wasn't just a farewell to Halo, it was the moment that we remember Bungie forever. I'll be honest with you guys, for some of you folks that watch this channel that are a little bit on the younger side, maybe you guys only know Bungie for Destiny, I'm sorry. It's next to impossible for me to be able to explain just how much their studio and their games meant to gamers worldwide. It's like their existence just made gaming better across the board. It rose the standard for everybody out there.
That's
Their
good.
storytelling was peerless, their gameplay was flawless, and
Maybe one of these days I'll buy the Halo Collection Edition and play it on stream one of these days to see, you know, to see how it was.
as a result of that, I think it made the rest of the industry want to do better. They were a company that just kept raising the standard with every single game that they released. And I didn't realize this until I started researching for this video, but I think the reason why we saw such a golden age in the Xbox 360 era isn't just because of nostalgia, it's just because Halo was that fucking good. It was impossible to ignore. If you were a company that was making video games,
Not even just back then or so, during the Xbox 360, Xbox era was the actual pinnacle golden age of video games. Now this day and age, everyone wants to make a Hollywood blockbuster video game now these days. You know, they all want to be the next, you know, fucking Hideo Kojima with storytelling and everything like that. And it's kind of like, I don't mind. Like, the problem is, like, I don't mind. Like the best example, right? Eating at a 5-star restaurant and having that like wagyu steak is good, right? Having it every so often is a nice treat to have, but if every single food was literally a Wagyu 5 steak, you know, it's like, now it gets really boring, it gets really irritating, and you just don't really care about it, you know? Like, that's like that personally is like the one thing that it's like same thing as video games, you know? If every single game that comes out is trying to basically be a Wagyu steak, it's like, you know? It's nice to have a variety when it comes to like the games in general, you know. During that era, when it comes to like the PS2, the Xbox 360, and the Xbox and the PS1 and everything, those were actually, like, I'll be honest with you, those were the golden age. Like PS3, what is it? PS3, PS2, PS1, Xbox 360, Xbox, and you know, that specific era in general was the best when it comes to video games, because you had so many different types of video games, you know. That's the reason why you had so many. You had platformers, you had fucking Banjo-Kazooie, you had fucking, you know, you fucking had freaking a lot of rare games coming out, especially what's the name of that one squirrel game that was like had so much profanity in it? I don't remember that game in general, you know. So
you needed to be learning something off of what Bungie was doing, because if you weren't, you were failing. And I mean, the advancements that Bungie had made just for first-person shooters on a console is just next level. I mean, they brought them to the console in the first place. They brought the entire genre to the console. It's like I said at the beginning of the video, the controls that you play on a controller today are some variation of Halo's controls. You cannot perfect perfection. These guys created a standard. Everybody else had to follow it. But those standards started to shift. The minute that these guys left Xbox was the minute that everything started to fall apart for them. Whether it was indecisiveness, whether it was the financial pressure of them going independent, maybe it was also their changes in leadership. All of the issues that they had that started at the development of Halo and then on started to bear fruit. And
I remember Conker's Bad Fur Day. There you go. That's the name of the game. Yeah. Conker's Bad Fur Day.
the image and the reputation that Bungie had built for itself was going to fall apart. While Bungie was still working on Halo 3 ODST and Reach, they were also working in the background on a game that they had planned to launch once they had gone independent, codenamed Project Tiger, later revealed as Destiny. After cutting ties with Microsoft, Bungie then signed a 10-year publishing deal with Activision in 2010. Why did these guys...
Yeah. When I heard this or so back then, I was like, Activision? I was like, yeah.
Guys think that was going to be a better deal for them, and it didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. In 2013, only a year before launch, Bungie leadership scrapped the original campaign written by Joe Staten, the veteran who had helped shape some of Halo's most iconic narratives. Staten then left the studio shortly after, and the campaign was rebuilt from fragments, leaving Destiny's story incoherent at launch. When Destiny launched...
Yep, we literally could have had an actual good story for Destiny 1, actually. but instead it was completely he left the studio, and then they kind of basically were like, fuck, what do we do now?
Launched in 2014, expectations were sky high. An MMO shooter coming from the studio that never misses. It felt like a dream, but in reality, it was a stumble that nobody ever saw coming. The gunplay was incredible, pure Bungie, but everything else around it was hollow. The story was weak, the content was thin, and the grind was absolutely relentless. It was a fun and frustrating experience at the same time, a game that felt great to play, but gave you nothing meaningful to do. Bungie's support really didn't help the situation either. Content drops dragged on, balance patches absolutely gutted some of the most popular weapons in the game, and over time it just became less fun to play. Expansions like the Dark Below and House of Wolves added scraps that felt more like cut content from launch, while the Taken King finally
Yeah, it actually did. Yeah, the Taken King was the actual, like, it actually felt like the actual DLC expansion. The two, you know, the Dark Below and the House of Wolves or so were basically felt like, huh, this should have been part of the game, you know? Even I said that.
Overhaul that players wanted all along, but only behind another paywall. By then,
Hey Josh, how you been? Hey, we got another YouTube frog. Welcome, welcome. And also thank you for the follow as well. Like Chetos, we got more YouTube frogs coming to hang out with us.
sense was already clear. Destiny had not launched unfinished by accident. Bungie was selling back the missing pieces later.
Yep.
Oh, I remember being so mad about this. The Dark Below was an absolute ripoff. Crota's End was a cool raid, but that expansion was just like one strike, a couple story missions, and a couple PvP maps. It all felt like cut content that should have.
Yeah, this was during the era. This was during the era of video games where like literally developers were cutting content out of video games and selling it back to you as DLC, or also known as fresh new stuff. You know, this was during that time. I remember
been there
this
since
era.
day one. Same thing goes for House of Wolves. By the time Taken King came along, yes, that was actually worth it. It finally made the game feel like the Destiny that was always pitched to us. But then Bungie comes in and puts in the Eververse store, bringing in microtransactions into a fully priced game with expansions. And that was
Because of Activision, that's the reason why.
like somebody walking into a 5-star restaurant and taking a shit on the table that you're eating at. You can ignore it, but you can still smell it. Now, I'll say this, maybe it's speculation, but I do not think that timing was a coincidence. This had Activision's fingerprints all over it, and likely Pete Parsons as well. Remember, Parsons was Bungie's manager under Microsoft. After leaving Xbox, he came back to Bungie later on to be their head of marketing, and not long after the Eververse store appeared, he was named CEO of the company. From that point forward, the influence of Activision and Parsons' leadership steered Bungie in a direction that would slowly but decisively erode everything that studio once stood for. I think it's worth pointing out just how fast their priorities had flipped. Think about where we started. This was a company that valued their independence, that wanted to make the games that they wanted to play, that shared the perspective of their audience because they were their audience. But the minute that they broke free of Microsoft, they immediately just went and handed that over to Activision. For what? Money.
Yep.
Suddenly their games were rushed, stories were scrapped, what was sold to us was entirely unfinished. And instead of fixing it, these guys are selling it back to us as DLC. At this point, they have completely shed the loyalty that they once felt for the audiences that built them to what they were at the time. And that's not the Bungie that anybody recognized. All it took was one game in 4 years for them to become that. And then came the microtransactions. What happened to We Are Our Players? It's always funny when I hear that from developers where they say that they share our perspective. How many developers pay for microtransactions in their own games? I'd really like to know. Actually, you don't need to tell me because I already know. As somebody that's been sponsored by video games in the past, I know that to them, it's just a button press on the back end. They don't know what it's like. It's money to us. To them, it's nothing. And that's the moment that Bungie lost perspective of their players. They stopped being us, and they started preying on us. When Destiny 2 launched in 2017, it was clear that Bungie had learned from at least some of their mistakes. Cutting support from the first game so quickly was frustrating for a lot of players, but the sequel was a massive improvement. The story was much more coherent, the campaign was cinematic, the launch was packed with content, there was more planets, better boss fights, and more weapons.
Now, this is, at this point onwards, I don't know anything about Destiny 2. So if this is all Destiny 2 stuff, I don't know anything about it, so...
wasn't perfect, but it was far sharper in every way, and it let players feel genuinely optimistic about the future. But that optimism would be
I only know the
wasted.
controversy
Because
of
not long
Destiny
after
2.
launch, players discovered that Bungie was secretly throttling XP gains to slow down how quickly players could earn Eververse rewards.
I remember this. Yep, I remember this.
It's on paper, XP should be used to be able to unlock free loot boxes containing cosmetic items, but in practice, Bungie had built a system deliberately limiting how often players could earn those rewards without paying. Now, this was just the start, because while the game felt content-rich at the start, the cracks started to show pretty quickly. Endgame progression was incredibly shallow, but that was by design, because only 3 months later, Bungie rolled out a $20 DLC and offered almost nothing, a single story mission, a strike, and a few scraps of content. It was the same cynical playbook that they had for Destiny 1's early expansions, and it confirmed what players were already starting to believe, that Bungie was not the beloved studio that they once were. They were a greedy one. By 2019, Bungie had shifted Destiny 2 to a free-to-play model, at least in name. In reality,
I remember this. I remember that they changed it into free-to-play. But what was I doing? What games were coming out in 2019? What was I doing in 2019? Let me see. In 2019... Ah, yes. My time was devoted in Sekiro. Yep, that's where my time was. Sekiro. Let me see. Oh, we had Devil May Cry 5 coming out. We also had Apex Legends coming out during that time. That's interesting. I never played it, though. I didn't play it until, like, super way later. Ah, yes. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019. Yep. I was playing Kingdom Hearts 3 when that came out too as well. Yep, I definitely played that one. We had Control, Days Gone, Bloodstained, The Ritual. I heard this game was really good too as well. Mech Warriors 5, Tom Clancy, Ghost Recon, Breakpoint, Daemon X Machina, Rage 2, Arc Knights came out. Oh yeah, I remember Arc Knights. Yeah, I played that as well. Final Fantasy, what is that, 14 Shadowbringers, I remember hearing that. Remnant of the Ashes. Ah, yes, Atelier Rise. Yep. Crash Team Racing Nitro Fuel, I remember. Yoshi's Crafted World. Samurai Showdown, Power Rangers. Yep, I remember. I remember a lot of these games, to be honest, so... Yeah, but most of my time was literally devoted in Sekiro. That's where I developed most of my time. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 was the next one that I played, and then Atelier was the next one afterwards. I had never played Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the 2019 one, because I didn't care about Modern Warfare, so I was already long gone out of the Call of Duty scene, so.
Multiple expansions had already been out, so the cost of the full experience of the game was well over $80 at the time. Players could access a base layer of content, but most weapons, raids, and campaigns were locked behind paywalls. Free-to-play was nothing more than a marketing label. And the worst part about all that paid content is that it wasn't even yours. In 2020, with the launch of Beyond Light, Bungie vaulted nearly half of Destiny 2's content. Expansions...
I remember this. Here's everything being removed from Destiny 2 at the end of the season. It's a lot. Yep. I remember this. I remember when they vaulted content out.
Players had paid for entire campaigns like the Red War, Curse of Osiris, and Warmind gone. Whole planets were deleted, exotic quests, weapons, and activities had vanished, all in the name of streamlining the experience. Bungie had claimed that it was necessary for technical reasons to introduce new systems and reduce file size, but no MMO or other live service game has ever done anything like this. It devalued years of support, erased content people had purchased, and it had made it feel like Bungie was forcing players forward into new expansions, whether they liked it or not. Now, you think after vaulting half of the game, Bungie would try to repair their relationship with their players, but instead of that, they just doubled down. The Witch Queen expansion was absolutely brilliant. God, I love that expansion so much. But underneath it came $20 paywall dungeons and expansion prices that crept up past the cost of a brand new game. in 2023, after Sony bought them, I thought that they would actually improve. I think a lot of people thought that they would, but things only got worse. Seasons got locked behind $10 to $15 paywalls, obfuscated through
Destiny 2 is raising the price of its season pass. Okay, I didn't know anything about this, to be honest.
silver bundles that were always forcing you to overpay for them.
I remember that.
Followed by paywalled exotics, paid campaign skips, and an Eververse store that just kept
Wait, hold up, excuse me, go back? What?
locked behind $10 to $15 paywalls, obfuscated through silver bundles that were always forcing you to overpay for them, followed by paywalled exotics, paid campaign skips, and an
Paid campaign skips? So you can pay to skip the campaign? Okay, that one literally, I've never heard of that one in my entire life. I've never heard of that one in my damn dude. That's crazy.
Store that just kept ratcheting up prices while locking more cosmetics away. And through all of this, Bungie still had the nerve to market Destiny as a free-to-play game when it clearly isn't. The most frustrating part of all of this is that despite all of its flaws, Destiny 2 can have some incredibly high points. That's why people keep coming back to it. Expansions like Lightfall in 2023 pushed the game over 300,000 concurrent players on Steam, and Episode 1 Echoes sparked a similar surge. The game can be amazing when it delivers. The gunplay is unmatched. The raids are some of the best in the industry, and that's why people care enough to be angry in the first place. But the erratic quality combined with Bungie's obsession with squeezing their players for all their worth has left this game feeling hollow. That's why the game now sits at 25,000 concurrent players on Steam.
30,000. 30,000. Sorry, I just gotta correct it, you know. You basically skip the story and get to the top power level of at the time. That's crazy.
Right now, it's lowest ever, and honestly, who could blame anybody for leaving? Destiny 2 costs over $400 if you want access to the full game. It's
Excuse me, what? 400? $400? Holy fuck, man. There is an Ultimate Edition, but I don't know if the Ultimate Edition gives you everything, in my personal opinion. What the fuck? Bungie 30th Anniversary Pack? Beyond the Light, Shadowkeep Pack, Forsaken Pack, the Witch Queen. I assume these ones are the DLCs, the one with the blue thing on the side. Lightfall. What if we got the Lightfall? What? Final Shape? Everything that's not vaulted. 400 and being free to play sucks. A Year of Prophecy? What the fuck is the Year of Prophecy? What the fuck is that? Is that like better than the Ultimate Edition or something? Or is the Ultimate Edition like is the Ultimate Edition everything? Or what are we talking about here? I don't even
content
know.
Behind expansions that can vanish at any time while still asking for money at every turn. This is not the Bungie that made Halo. That's obvious now. Most of the original staff is gone, lost to layoffs, creative differences, scandals, or burnout, or whatever else. And what's left has shifted its perspective so far from we are our players that the quality has suffered and the trust is gone. Bungie was once one of the most renowned...
It's not... Yeah, these are not the same developers anymore. So if you're expecting to think that Bungie is going to go back to the way it was, stop coping, because it's not going to happen because all the original devs are gone, so...
studios in the world. Now nobody gives them the benefit of the doubt because they have proven time and time again that they do not deserve it. They've abandoned...
The Ultimate Edition is not everything. Then what the fuck does it give you then? What the hell? If it's an Ultimate Edition, you know, you expect it to give you everything.
And in their principles that they were founded on, to the point where their own leadership openly dismisses the idea of delivering value to their players. At GDC 2023, Bungie's then general manager, now CEO Justin Truman, gave a presentation on running a live service game where he literally argued that over-delivering to your players is a bad thing. He said,
wow. Over-delivering is a bad thing. I've never heard that in my entire life, dude. That is crazy to hear that he said that.
And if we release an expansion with 2 raids, the next year folks are going to be upset if there's only 1 raid. We've hurt the station by making a rogue decision in 1 train, but at the same time, and this is why the lesson is so painful, so much of quality and delight in our craft comes from over-delivery, right? From giving folks stuff beyond what they expected. We still want that. We still want to surprise and delight and sometimes overwhelm our players, but we need to be mindful of the patterns and the implied future commitments we've set for ourselves each time. Games media rushed in to defend Bungie at the time, claiming that players just didn't understand the full context of the conversation, but let's be real, that's a bullshit mentality.
Yeah.
It does not benefit your customers in any way. You should be setting clear goals and delivering on them. Simple as that. How disorganized, how inept is your leadership?
I bet you if they release like 1 raid or so, but it's like one of the, like, let's say for example they release 2 raids in one, right, in 1 expansion, but then the next expansion only has 1 raid. I expect that raid to be like, you know, equivalent to like to be one of the best raids ever, you know? That means you have enough time and enough manpower and enough sources or so to make a really good ultimate raid, you know? I don't think people would complain or so if the product itself was actually good.
If you have to justify not creating patterns of quality, if you're afraid of actually setting positive expectations, that's not a strategy, it's cowardice. And that leadership, I think, has shown.
The Ultimate Edition are for current and future expansions that should give you everything, like the Battle Pass, dungeons, etc. It does not give content before. Wait, so you're telling me, so if I buy the Ultimate Edition right now, I can only get the current expansion that's happening right now, and any future expansions that are coming up in the future. But if I want to buy any previous expansions, I have to buy them separately? That sounds a highway robbery in my personal opinion.
Through bright as day when they revealed Marathon earlier this year, a hero-based extraction shooter. I didn't think you could be any more on the nose when it comes to trend chasing.
This was the worst thing I've ever heard in my entire life for them to do, actually, to be honest. They made a fucking battle royale game, bro. Or technically not a battle royale, it's a fucking extraction shooter. I don't know why they decided to make an extraction shooter.
But the reveal landed with a thud, uninspired, unwanted, instantly forgettable. Then came the controversy when fans discovered that Bungie had copied an indie artist's work for their...
People pay $100 for them. Sadly, got friends, they paid $100 for them. You will never see me spend $100 on like something like that, to be honest. You'll never see me do that. Nope.
art deck, then they go and blame it on a former employee that got swept up under layoffs. But true or not, intentional or not, it doesn't really matter. It only underscores just how disorganized and hollow this studio has become. And I'll be honest with you, I played the Marathon pre-alpha, and it was the first time in all of my research that I actually felt like I was going to work. No soul, no spark. It was just an empty grind that just made it painfully clear that Bungie has not only sold away their principles, but their talent. The only thing that's left is a studio that is creatively bankrupt, and it's being run by management that has no idea what they're doing. And that's why Marathon is delayed indefinitely.
Is oh wait, oh, this is in June 17 of 2025? Bungie delays Marathon indefinitely. Holy shit, dude.
Sony now sees the writing on the wall and that they've wasted their $3.6 billion investment. With Destiny 2 bleeding players and Marathon delayed indefinitely, they've begun stripping away Bungie's autonomy, preparing to fold the studio fully into PlayStation, likely dissolving it entirely. There's a really good chance that Bungie just won't exist after this. Bungie's story is tragic because it didn't have to be this way. They weren't some no-name studio that lucked into success. They were visionaries that once set a standard for the entire industry. They took shooters off of the PC and brought them to console. They created moments.
Yeah, definitely for me specifically, if I make my studio in the far off future, you know, right? I think personally I would stay indie, but I don't mind if you know, if they reach out to me, but I'm gonna say this. I would send them an email back or something or anything like that, or contact them to them. Okay, but you know, these are my rules. If you want to work with us to make a good game, you're going to work with our rules. We're not going to work with your rules. You're going to work with our rules. You want money, you want success, you want this game to be good, follow my orders, and that's pretty much it. So
memories and community.
Is it a pretty egotistical thing to say? Yeah, but at the end of the day, the problem is these companies, like these big companies in general, they don't have the soul and the passion to make AAA games fun, you know? They've kind of like lost that like actual like their mind is pretty clouded, to be honest. I'm not sure about packing Bungie. I think Marathon is their last shot for sure, though. They're probably gonna try to pull every single stop to make this game, to make a Marathon good, you know. But I still think Marathon is still not going to succeed.
Communities that shaped an entire generation of players, and then they just sold it all away, piece by piece. A studio that was its own customer.
Take care, Josh. Be safe. Thank you for coming by as always. Very much appreciated. So yeah, no worries, hun. You take care, hun. You be safe.
Became a studio that looked at its players as wallets to be drained. They traded their identity for contracts. They traded ambition for trends. They traded trust for microtransactions, and now they're just a shell of whatever they used to be. The community is fractured. Their flagship game is bleeding players. Their next project is a punchline, and the company itself is just now being stripped for parts. The truth is, Bungie isn't collapsing because of bad luck. They're collapsing because they abandoned the very philosophy that made them great. The people who...
No. They did not abandon their philosophy. The original devs still have their philosophy. The problem is there are new devs here. So they don't know the philosophy, the old philosophy of what the original devs used to do. So that's the reason why. They don't know. Especially, you know, the more upper management in the area, you know? I assume the younger developers, the junior developers and all this other stuff are probably the ones that are super passionate and everything. But the older, you know, the higher up people don't really have that same drive, you know?
Once played their own games, who built for themselves and invited us along for the ride, are gone.
Hey.
What's left is a company that doesn't even understand its audience anymore. A company who forgot what it was. And in this industry, when you lose that, you don't just fall, you get buried. I don't think that Marathon stands a chance. I don't see a world where that happens. Not without a vast reimagining. I'm talking about an almost entirely different game, which requires a lot more time and a lot more money, and I do not think those are things that Sony is going to be willing to give to them. I think that Sony's looking at this and saying, this is a company that's lost its trust, that's lost its talent, that's lost its organization.
Oh, they're streaming right now?
They're likely regretting that $3.6 billion investment, or saying to themselves, let's just salvage whatever we can that still works. I'm deeply saddened to make a video like this. I would have never thought that this is where Bungie would end up. I really wouldn't. I mean, I've talked about this in other videos in the past, but Halo was largely the game that made me a gamer. Like, sure, I played games when I was younger, but at the same time, I never had games that I was, like, committed to. Games that became a part of my identity or part of my personality, or that led to me making a lot of other friends and memories and things like that. And, I mean, they drove me to want to make games of my own. I mean, I dropped out. I'm just not really built for programming, to be honest with you. But either way, that's still what their games did. Their games inspired others to do other things, to do great things, or try to do great things. And now their games only inspire.
Hey, I know Dubstep was here, and I know a few of you guys were here when I told you guys of my like reimagine of my story or so for Destiny, right? My curiosity for you guys, at least the ones who've heard it or so. If I make, you know, if we work on a project or so in the far future, right? Far off future, right? Let's put this in hypothetical terms, right? Let's say, for example, we've made 3 or 4 games in my studio, right? Would you guys be interested if I made like, not like a direct copy or so or anything like that, but like be inspired or so, make my own version of like Destiny or so, but not like, you know, not like a 1-to-1 copy, but like be like, this is what I thought Destiny was going to be, you know? We basically make our own version, a better own version of Destiny, you know? Because I still have the remnants of the story, you know, from what I created. Would you guys, my curiosity here, that's my Twitch chat, right? Because I already told pieces of this story already. Would you guys be interested to have something like that, at least, like way far off in the future? Not a hentai. Shut the fuck up. You fucking little shit. I'm talking about the real one, stupid ass. This dumbass motherfucker.
Criticism, hate, resentment. I really am of the mind that money corrupts all.
It does.
And that the more that you're tempted by the ring, the more focus you lose. And the more focus you lose, everything starts to suffer as a result of it. I have no problem with these companies wanting to make money. I don't even have a problem with companies wanting to have microtransactions in their game. I really don't. The problem is that when that gets in the way of the quality of the experience and actually making something for the audience that you're putting it out there for. And when your greed is getting...
I carefully... So this was back in Destiny 1. I reimagined the entire story of Destiny 1, and I made it into like, I think like 4 different books. So basically it would be like 4 games in total, you know. It'd be 4 games in total. But I made 4 books, and I carefully dissected the, like, I split apart Destiny 1 and I dissected it, expanded more on certain sections that weren't expanded. I also brought back in, I think it was in book 3 or in book 2. Do you guys remember the moth race that was supposed to be added in the original concept art? Do you guys remember the moth people in Destiny 1? Like in super early project or so in Destiny. They were gonna add like a race of like moth people. You know, I even brought that back in like in like the second story or the third story. It was like one of those two. And we kind of like expanded, and we kind of made a planet specifically for them, and you would go over there and do like missions and stuff like that on that specific planet in general. You know, that's what we created. Well, why do I say we? I mean, that's what I created anyways, for that one. And then also I expanded how you get your abilities and stuff like that. So you guys know that the Titan has the Sunbreaker hammer and everything. So instead of like because I'm not too sure how you get it now these days, because I think Dubstep told me it's pretty lame how you get it now. But what I decided to do is like make a trial. So you go through 3 trials, right? And you learn like through the process of the 3 trials, you unlock like I would say like it's kind of like you know how like in Naruto, like you unlock the 8 inner gates. It's basically like something like that in general to unlock for you to wield the golden hammer, the fucking Sunbreaker hammer anyways. And then in the final trial itself, you fight a boss, you know, like an actual mini boss or so, to prove your worth. And then, you know, you try to, you know, you defeat it and everything like that. And then you step forward into the rune forge, and then you stick your hand into this like fiery rune forge. And that's where you like, you know, your hammer pulls out. And that's how you get the Sunbreaker itself. You know, that's basically is what I try to do, but it was like more in depth. I know they're like in one of the trials, specifically in the second trial, you have to go through a labyrinth. And you're timed or so through the labyrinth. So it will be trial and error, but you would have to go through a labyrinth specifically, you know, for you to try to complete it. You know, you gotta do some objectives inside the labyrinth itself for you to claim. You have to claim the parts or so for the hammer. And then you take it over to the third trial and everything. So like you're building your own hammer, basically. That's basically is what it is, you know. But instead of like, I was thinking instead of like, you know how like you have the small hammer and everything, you know, like your throwable hammer. It was actually going to be I actually changed the hammer a bit, and we did actually this. Let me see. Instead of like the the normal hammer, it was going to be a more longer one. So it's going to be a dual-handed kind of type of thing. And we kind of like, you know, I kind of like wanted to do something like that for the Sunbreaker for the Titans, you know. That's what I thought personally, more like a 2-hammer instead of a 1-hammer. So that was my idea personally of what I wanted to do for Titans in general. So that was my personal idea. But yeah,
getting to the point where it's interfering with the process, with the quality, with the experience that you're delivering, you've already lost your company at that point. At least that's how it works in my eyes. I don't know if becoming a part of PlayStation is going to help them. Maybe it will. I mean, PlayStation's internal studios do relatively well for the most part, so maybe that ends up being a boon to them, and maybe it ends up working out. Maybe that's what they need, is just stronger leadership and more oversight. I mean, if you think about it, they were at their peak when they had Microsoft over them.
Yeah, but that's when the original devs were there, though. That's like the difference. I think they do need like strong leadership to guide them where they need to go, because at the end of the day, they don't know what the fuck they're doing half the. Because we let them by themselves, right? They went off and separated themselves, and then they decided to make a contract with Activision. I'm like, who the fuck wants to make a contract with Activision? It's like, now in today's age, who the fuck wants to do that?
So, I mean, maybe this is exactly what they need. Maybe independence was the last thing that Bungie needed.
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is probably going to be a long one. I had a lot to say. I didn't want to leave out any context. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
It was a good video. This was
long.
a really good video.
If you guys did enjoy the video, share the video. Like the video, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitch, follow me on Twitter, catch me live on Fridays. And yeah, that's all I got. Stay cool, stay righteous, stay safe. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Yeah, that was a good video. I liked it. That was definitely a good video. I actually enjoyed this video. That was a good video. Legendary drops does make it really good. Really good video. Crazy how things were not that bad with Activision's control. The only thing that was pretty crazy or so back then was the actual like the monetization thing, right? That was like the only thing that was just kind of like you know. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think specifically, because I know I have a lot of Destiny players in my fan base or so, right? But that's basically what I created with my own version of Destiny 1. Who knows? Maybe I'll remake it and make it into a different, you know, giving the hints or so of like my story. But we're gonna change a lot of things of the elements in the video game, like in the far off future. Far off future though. That's like one of the dreams that I would love to have, is a studio where we have passionate people making games, you know? It's for the gamers, because at the end of the day, you guys, you know, the male demographic is the one who makes, you know, who plays video games the most. So granted, I would need the right people to make these kinds of games, so I would probably hire specific people while I'm overwatching the project itself, you know? We don't want some of these people going rogue on me and decide to put some stupid shenanigans in my video games. I'm just like, that's not how we're doing this. We're doing it like this, and we're doing it like that. Stop putting your weird ideology shenanigans in there, okay? All right? Anyways, it's pretty sad to see the collapse of Bungie, but I think in my personal opinion, they do actually need a strong leadership to steer the ship of where this needs to go, because at the end of the day, they don't really, at least from at the moment what they have done so far, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. That's the only problem, you know? Anyways, that's the end of the video. You can comment, like, subscribe, do all that fancy jazzy stuff. But yeah, love to see it one day. One of these days, we'll do it. One of these days. I think it'd be pretty fun to make a project like that. I would need to hire people who know stuff about like FPS stuff, you know, and like online aspects of video games in general. And that's pretty much about it. But yeah. The lore of this hentai Destiny sounds great. Shut your bitch ass up. Anyways, that's the end of the video. And shut up your hentai, you horny ass fucking bitch. That's the end of the video. And